Hello and welcome to Autocar Professional, and it is a delight that today I'm sitting with Rakesh Sharma, who is the ED at Bajaj Auto. Hello and welcome, and so thank you so much for talking to us. The industry right now is going through, it's in deep turbulent waters. There are domestic challenges. Internationally, you're seeing so much churn happening, inflation, there are geopolitical issues. How do you read the market going forward? If you could get us and give us a sense of the domestic market and also your international business, we could start with that and then delve deeper into some other nitty-gritties we would want to understand.
Indeed, Prerna, it's the sign of our times that things are choppy for one reason or the other, whether it is the immediately concluded year of FY25 or even before that, for one reason or the other, things have been turbulent. There is the geopolitics, as you know, which causes problems right from supply chain, logistics, and currency, macroeconomic issues. To, I would say, even changes fundamentally in consumer behavior, shaping of the consumer behavior by giant e-commerce companies which run, very attractive schemes closer to the festive, pushes demands to certain time buckets which are closer to festive, and we have seen the ups and downs, the peaks and troughs of demand becoming sharper and sharper. We have also seen that economic growth is not evenly distributed. So there is pressure on income distribution, inequality, which has its own ramifications on the kind of products which are then in demand, because we find that certain segments, even in our broader customer franchise, certain segments are growing much faster than other segments. And obviously, therefore, it reflects in the product uptake. Then we've seen geographic differences, which have become even more sharper. Let's say in this year, between Northeast and UP and Tamil Nadu, very different set of trends and growth rates. So when you look at an average growth rate, what it hides is that there is a strong variance in time buckets, geographic buckets, and consumer segments, which makes, of course, management and navigating through an overall turbulence even more exciting, require so more astute management.
Yeah. So you fairly future-proofed yourself in the sense that the segments that you operated, whether it's the CNG bike, whether it's EVs, and both for three-wheelers and two-wheelers, your international portfolio, your premium segment, entry level. So you fairly future-proofed yourself in sort of dividing yourselves thin into different segments. How does that strategy play out for the future? How would you sort of double down on that strategy, if you could just give us a sense on that as well?
Well, I won't say that we have future-proofed ourselves, but I would certainly say that we have created more and more options for us to grow. At a strategic level, it is very difficult to anticipate what is going to happen for the reasons which we have discussed. And we felt that it is more important for us to be prepared for any kind of scenario. Yeah. So having defined our battleground in terms of the kind of product scope we believe we have a good competitive strength in, which is, let's say, 100 to 500 cc motorcycles, three-wheelers and electric scooters, and having defined a geographic scope, which is largely, let's say, India and emerging markets. Then in these markets, we have our endeavor has been to create platform for growth. And now, depending on which segment or sector rises up, we have a platform over there to service. So therefore, starting from creating a new brand for our electric auto, which is GoGo, to Chetak, which is for electric scooters, to CNG Freedom, or entering a very important new market like Brazil, and several others out there. These are all outcomes of a strategy to have platforms of growth in position in our chosen battleground, so that we are able to harness wherever the opportunity arises.
So basically, picking and choosing your strengths and sort of doubling down on that. You spoke of electric, and now 1/4 of your revenues come from that segment. How do you see the growth potential in that segment? Again, there were like hiccups with a lot of policy issues in, like, especially for two-wheeler segment. Three-wheeler again is a very different story. So how do you see that playing out? Is the pace of growth and sustaining your lion's share now sort of a challenge going forward?
Well, I think the growth is going to be driven by how the customer has started to perceive the electric solution. And I speak for two-wheelers right now. For economic reasons, and over the years, with growing confidence in the format, I think it's very clear that when a consumer is going in to buy a two-wheeler, an electric option is certainly in the consideration set. This, more than anything else, will continue to ensure that the electric two-wheeler segment keeps growing. Last year, it has grown at about 20%. The penetration, it's obviously cannibalizing ICE scooters more than any other format. And its penetration right now is, I think, about 25%. It will continue to inch up, because at 20% growth, it will be faster than ICE scooters. We think that it will become more and more widespread. And mind you, this growth has been there. It outbeating the ICE scooter growth is despite the fact that, over the last 3 years, the subsidy support has been reducing.
Correct.
But on the other hand, I must also say that the battery costs have come down because the cell prices have come down, which has allowed us to sort of, to some extent, absorb the battery, the subsidy reductions, etc. I think that's going to continue to grow. On the three-wheeler side also, it's a very healthy growth, and there is a large segment of e-rickshaws which have been based on lead acid, and they're not exactly, the vehicles are not robust. They don't give a sound customer or passenger or driver experience, but they fulfill a great need for last mile mobility in smaller towns, in narrow lanes, etc. So I think that better solutions over there, and also dealing with the restrictions which ICE three-wheelers have, will ensure that there will be a very healthy growth for electric three-wheelers in the e-rick format, or in the e-auto format, or even in the cargo format. So when I put both the two-wheeler and three-wheeler segment together, I can, like you said, they're already constituting 25% of our revenues, and I think they will, domestic revenues, and I think that will continue to grow. And I would say it would probably be a benchmark number.
Very good. So basically, like your segmentation strategy in across portfolios in different segments, you've also strategically invested in different powertrains, CNG, ethanol, and EV now, considering it's a significant part of your portfolio. So how will that plurality of powertrain strategy play out? Because as we can see, it's not going to be 100% electric till like the near future that we are sort of going to see, like as fast as we would have wanted it to be. So how is that plurality of powertrain going to play out for a future that is obviously going towards sustainability?
I think foremost, the reason for that plurality to be there, and what you're asking is how it will manifest, is because of the different use cases which a customer has. Because of, secondly, the demands on from the society, which is to reduce pollution. We know that there are environmental issues which the country is facing, and there's a constant struggle to balance the aspirations of people in mobility with the minimizing environmental issues. It is to balance. It has to also be shaped by the foreign exchange pressures which the government and the country faces through import of oil. So when you put it together, There is the government's objective of reducing dependence on oil. There is a societal objective of reducing the environmental burden, and there are customer aspirations. Now, in that, within the customer aspirations or the use cases, there are multiple ones. Some people have got easy access to charging. Some people will not be able to charge. Some people are long distance users. Some people are short distance frequent users. And no one single fuel system can manage all these stakeholders.
So it's going to be demand
So
driven.
therefore, there will be plurality, and depending on how each segment shapes up, I think we will see the weights based on that. But for sure, there is no one single silver bullet. There will be multiple fuel systems, which will, manage these, manage the expectations of the different stakeholders.
You spoke about demand patterns changing. If you could broadly define those newer patterns that are developing in like some of the broader segments, especially the motorcycles, how do you sort of see that developing? How do you prepare for a future which is so unpredictable and still sort of it's an evolution phase?
Yeah, so I would say that the long term, let's say 3 to 7 years prognosis is that the motorcycle market in India at least is, and in most of the emerging markets around the world, is in pretty good shape because the fundamental drivers are very strong. Now, let's take India. In India, the demographic is very good, youthful demographic, the expanding road network, the expanding CNG systems, the penetration of retail finance, which is all very good things which are driving demand. Where this growth starts to get blunted is when there are disruptions or dislocations, inflation,
Unpredictability.
unpredicted geopolitical issues. The fundamental drivers for growth are intact, but there can be temporary dislocations. And yes, even the distribution of growth is shaping the industry in a particular way. We believe for the last 5 years, what we are seeing is something which has persisted and overcome these dislocations is the upper half of the industry is growing at a much faster rate than the bottom half. So let's say the 100cc bikes used to be 55% of the total market, let's say 5 years back. Now they're 45%.
That's flipped, yeah.
So it's like almost a 10 percentage point shift, in 5 to 7 years time period,
frame,
which is a very structural change. So this gradual uptrading is certainly a trend which we are seeing. And over a longer term, I think growth in the market should continue.
Got it. Just lastly, what in the long term, what is the growth potential from your international business? Because that's again, dealing with a lot of challenges, and we've seen past growth potential as well. So how does that sort of play out in, say, like this? If you look at this financial year, how do you sort of project that?
The international growth is slightly more vulnerable than what we talked about in India because, by the nature of the constituents of our market, which are emerging market, they're more vulnerable economically. The exchange rates tend to be a bit volatile and dependent on big movements on which they don't have control, and that leads to inflation and then suppression of demand. But the good thing in our case is that we are in 100 plus countries. So some countries are going up, some countries are going down. For example, this year it's been, while Africa has started to recover, but it was down. But we have seen the rise of Latin America. And with the rise of Latin America, we've seen our mix dramatically improving. So I would say international is more vulnerable because of its individual country's size and the strengths. But collectively, when you put all of them together, the pluses and minuses start to cancel out. And we see, at least in this year, if there is no geopolitical problem and disturbance, all that, we see the recent growth trends of, double digits, 15% plus kind of a thing,
For
should
the
continue
international.
to, we should continue to keep growing at that pace in the immediate term.
And if you would like to put a number for the EV growth as well as for the domestic market cumulative growth, what will that be?
Well, like I said, the industry we expect to grow at about 5 to 7% band in the immediate term, with the top half growing much faster than the 5 to 7%. And we hope to, over the year, beat and be ahead of the industry growth. Our focus is the top half, which is the 125cc plus, and we would like to be higher than the industry growth. Similarly, in exports, like I said, we want to continue our current rate of growth, which is pretty handsome, and the mix which is coming out is also pretty good.
Got it. On that positive note, thank you so much for spending time with us and giving us such special insights on the industry, both EV and the international and domestic business. Loved spending time with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prerna. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.